are doing well. I'm excited to meet you once again on this platform. And today's topic is about home-based ways of food enrichment. In other words, how can we enrich foods at home to make it nutritious using the simple methods that we can comfortably practice at home? The concept of balanced nutritious diet refers to the intake of food that contains all nutrients in their rightful quantities, preferably from diverse sources at every meal serving. However, it is always a challenge to comply to this principle, especially in the African setting where we are still struggling with the issue of food insecurity. So you find that we end up shifting from taking balanced, nutritious diet to eating something that can just satisfy us or something that will make us full because of either availability or accessibility. The issue of poor nutrition knowledge is also a contributing factor to poor dietary habits. Naturally, foods contain different nutrients, and there are nutrients that are dominant or principal in one food item and they are lesser in another food item. And this is where the concept of food group originated from. Foods have been categorized or grouped in accordance to the principal nutrients they contain. That's why we have a group of starches or cereals, and the principal nutrients there are carbohydrates. We have a category of vegetables. The principal nutrients there are vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and so on. So you find that if you take only one particular food group, you will get the principal nutrient or nutrients in that food group, but you will not be getting other nutrients that are maybe not dominant in that particular food group. That's why it's very important to ensure we are taking food from all food groups so that we get the variety of nutrients that are contributed from these different food groups. But there are times that come in our homes whereby we can only find one food group dominating. Like for example, during hunger seasons, I remember when I was a child, there are times I would just find my mother has prepared porridge every day. Porridge. That means it's only porridge she could afford, or it's only porridge that was at home. So the only nutrient I was getting in that porridge made of maize flour was carbohydrate. So I was getting carbohydrate, but at the expense of other nutrients like proteins or vitamins or what, which are not found in the maize flour. That's why it is important to take different food groups. So what is food enrichment? Food enrichment is the practice of improving the nutritional value of food using special methods. So that instead of this porridge, for example, just having carbohydrates only, we find a way of introducing a protein in it, or we find a way of introducing some vitamin in it. Instead of these vegetables just being having vitamins only, we find a way of introducing a protein in it. So that in that case, we are improving the nutritional value of food, to ensure that this food does not only contain one particular nutrient, but we have found a way to introduce another nutrient so that to enhance or enrich the nutritional value of this food. So what are the benefits or importance of food enrichment? Number one, it helps to ensure that the body gets the required nutrients daily. Number two, food enrichment ensures that food is consumed in a balanced manner. In other words, instead of just leaning on one particular nutrient, you are getting variety of nutrients. So we get a balanced diet. Another benefit of food enrichment is that it helps to prevent nutrient deficiencies. For example, using my example of porridge, if I'm just taking porridge, and porridge, I've told you, it was so rich in carbohydrate but deficient in other nutrients like protein, I could end up being protein deficient. But when this porridge is enriched to make it also contain protein, then I can also get protein. So in other words, I have prevented being protein deficient. Another benefit of food enrichment is to ensure that food has good texture and flavor. I remember my mother would say that make sure you put some milk cream in that vegetable, and then the vegetable has good taste, it has good texture, it is more palatable. So food enrichment also makes the food to have a good texture and taste, and even to be more palatable. Lastly, food enrichment ensures that food is consumed from diverse sources, which is a very important principle in nutrition, that food should be consumed from variety of sources or from diverse sources. So by enriching food, we are introducing nutrients from different sources, therefore promoting this concept of dietary diversity. So what are some of these home-based ways of food enrichment? In other words, the methods we can do at home to enrich food. And I'm going to talk at three main ones: combination, fermentation, and germination. Number one, combination, just as the word combine, to bring together different items. So in combination, you bring different food items from different food groups to make a dish or to make a meal. So for example, instead of just making rice, just white rice like that, you could grate some pieces of carrots and introduce in it. So that rice, instead of just being a carbohydrate meal, you have introduced inside some vitamin A from the carrots. Another example of combination is, for example, chapati. Instead of just using water to make chapati, you could use milk. So you have introduced a protein into this chapati. So your chapati will be enriched. It will not only be made of carbohydrate as a principal nutrient, but you have introduced also protein from the milk that you used in the preparation. Porridge, for instance, if you are having a millet porridge, you could also introduce in some lemon. In that case, you are introducing vitamin C. So your porridge will not only be made of carbohydrate, but you have introduced in another nutrient which we are calling vitamin C. For example, also, if I am having bread, instead of just taking bread like that, I could make a sandwich and introduce some vegetables there, some, tomatoes, some lettuce, some cabbage in between to make a sandwich. So I am introducing vitamins, I'm introducing minerals, I'm introducing fiber to this, my bread. So combining different food items to make one that is more nutritious than if it was just a single method. That is what I'm referring to combination. The next method is called fermentation. And fermentation, from a simple language, I would say, is the process by which food molecules are broken down anaerobically. In other words, in the absence of oxygen. When these foods are broken down, they are more improved, like carbohydrates and proteins are made in a more digestible form. And even new nutrients are formed during the process of fermentation. And also minerals like phosphorus, calcium, and iron are broken into a more bioavailable form. In other words, into a form that can be easily absorbed than if it had not been taken through the process of fermentation. Examples of fermented food are fermented porridge, fermented milk, fermented cassava, which my friends call gari from West Africa, and all that. So fermentation is another way that we can practice at home to enrich the nutritional value of food. And the third method is germination. Germination simply is the sprouting of a seed into seedling or shoot. And during germination, we should be careful to ensure that we only use water that is just enough. Not too much, but just enough, so that this water will be absorbed during germination. If we put too much water, we will have to discard some of the water, and that is a very poor practice because we are also discarding some important nutrients. So when you are germinating your cereals at home, when you are germinating your peas at home, make sure you are using just enough water. The importance of germination. Did you know that by just germination, vitamin C improves 10 times than the original quantity. And vitamin B gets almost double its original quantity. So when you germinate food, for instance, you will get more vitamin C. 10 times the original quantity before you germinated. When you germinate food, vitamin B in that food gets almost the double portion. So it is a very important strategy of enriching the nutritional value of food. So make sure you practice at least one of these 3 methods if you cannot practice all. But I would advise that try and make it possible to practice all these methods of food enrichment. Combination, I've said bringing food ingredients together. Then fermentation. Then lastly, germination. Sprouting of a seed into a seedling or a shoot. These 3 methods enrich the food, making it more nutritious than it was in its original form. So this is the end of today's presentation. I would just want to end by encouraging you that practice these methods of food enrichment. They are simple and they are achievable. We can practice it in our kitchen at home. They do not need sophisticated equipment. They do not need any complex procedures. They are just simple things that we can do at home, and our food will be more nutritious, enabling the body to get the nutrients in the right form, in the right quantities to perform different functions. That is what I have for today. See you next time. Shalom.